Good morning, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Today we will continue our lecture talking about culture and cultural differences in the international level. Last thing we talked about is Hofstede's study and the dimensions he set to differentiate between societies and culture. The last thing we talked about was Abraham Maslow, work motivation and hierarchy of needs, and what people prefer at the physiological, then security, then affiliation, self-esteem, and self-actualization. Our lecture today will deal with relationship preferences and differences on certain dimensions concerning risk-taking and relationship between individuals and societies. Hofstede described the relation between the superiors and the subordinates, the management and the employees inside the organization. He set a certain dimension which he called power distance. Power distance, power, it means authority, and the distance which measures the distance between those at the highest level and those at the bottom of the organization, which are the employees. Hofstede said that when the power distance is high, which means the authority is so high in the organization, this means that the management style will be more autocratic and paternalistic, which means that we are talking about an organization which is a bureaucratic organization based on superior powers at the top. But when the power distance is low, managers usually they interact with their employees and consult with them and take decision making which is at the collective level with the people. Moreover, Hofstede set another dimensions talking about relationships, which he called individualism versus collectivism. Individualism, which means the individual, and collectivism, which means the collective, which means the group. He said that in individualistic cultures, usually people, they desire freedom, they desire time, and they challenge the self-actualization as a prime motivator. On the other hand, in collectivist societies, usually persons, they are dependent on other groups, either in the family or on the tribe or on the something which can support them in life and give them certain assurance that they will be fine and they will be okay. In the organization, they rely on the organization. They want training, they collaborate with each other, and they share the rewards. Here, the prime motivator for those people in collectivist cultures is safe physical and emotional environment in a certain manner. We come to the concept of risk-taking, how the risk is different between cultures. Let us talk about four main dimensions. The first one is uncertainty avoidance, trust, future orientation, and fatalism. What do you mean by uncertainty avoidance? Uncertainty avoidance, usually in cultures, this means that if we have high uncertainty avoidance and we have low uncertainty avoidance, in the first one, which is the high uncertainty avoidance, usually the employees, they prefer following set defined rules and precise direction because they want to feel safe and they feel that the rules, they protect them. Even if they break the rules, but they break it to their self-interest and for the interest of the company. Here, people, they are accustomed to follow certain precise direction and they look for long-term employment with the organization, which makes them feel safe from the uncertain and from the unknown. Here also, when the uncertainty avoidance is high, the consumers in a certain society, they are not prepared to take the risk and to be the early adopters of the product. They wait until other people, they might try this product to make sure that it is not in a bad manufactured in a bad way. Trust. What do you mean by trust? Trust usually represent my belief or a person's belief and reliability and honesty in his look to other people. If you trust someone, this means that you know that he has manner, you know that he has morality, you know that usually he is cooperative and so on. So this leads to a trust between you and him. When the trust is high in certain societies or certain cultures, this is reflected in doing business, which means that you trust each other, and for this reason, doing business in a certain culture, the managers, they don't depend too much worrying about unforeseen events or emergencies, because they know that other people, they are trustful and they are cooperative with them. Here he gives us an example, saying that the Norwegians in Norway, they tend to exhibit high degree of trust, and the Brazilian, they tend to be doubtful, which means they don't trust each other in a certain way. Future orientation. What do you mean by future orientation? Here, Hofstede measured two orientations, which he called long-term and short-term. Usually, in certain cultures, in certain societies, individuals who tend to live for the present, which means that for short-term orientation, which is opposite for the long-term orientation, usually they see the risk in delaying satisfaction and investing for the future. Where future orientation is higher, which means that we look for long-term, workers are motivated by types of delayed compensation for the future, such as they look for good retirement programs which will protect them in front of the unseen. Here he gives us an example for Canada, for instance. In Canada, it is a high future orientation, and in the Netherlands and Switzerland. But in Italy, Poland, and Russia, usually it's low future orientation. What do you mean by fatalism? Fatalist, when we say a person he is a fatalist, which represent the belief that the life usually is predestined or predetermined. This means that in our culture, for instance, in the Arab world, we say that everything is in the hand of Allah. So everything is destined and predetermined by the will of Allah, which is right. But is everything inevitable? Does this mean that we should not be prepared? We should set certain rules to protect ourselves, and then Allah will tell us that leave the rest for me. In other societies, they believe that strongly in self-determination, and they believe in the cause and effect of the relationship. In the first one, fatalists usually, they don't plan for contingencies. They take contingencies, or they are responsible, or they have good performance. For this reason, they are less persuaded by the logic than personal relationship. They rely on personal relationships, just as in our cultures we rely too much on relationships because of this reason. Okay, let us see what is the relation between fatalism and self-determination. When the culture or the people in a certain culture, certain society, they believe in self-determination, which means that self-dependence and self-actualization, they are willing to work hard in order to achieve their goals and to take responsibility and to do a better performance. In fatalist or pessimistic cultures, usually, they believe that every event in life is inevitable, as I said, and they are less likely to take risk and to reckon on everything that is unknown for them. So we have talked about certain dimensions which Hofstede mentioned in relationship preferences. Next time, inshallah, we will talk about information and task processing across cultures and how they are different. So thank you and bye-bye.